Hey YouTube. I am back for yet another video. It's been a while. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. I haven't been on and I actually even posted here on YouTube that I wanted my next video to be about my reread of the autobiography of Malcolm X, but I was really working through that script and I realized that I wanted to take my time with it, so I didn't want to rush it. So with that being said, I wanted to come in, and I haven't talked to you guys at all about what I read in January. So I figured I'll talk to you about what I read in January, and then we can also talk about, you know, what I plan on reading this Black History Month, kind of where I'm at in my reading in this particular moment. All right, so without further ado, let's get into my late January wrap up. All right, so the first book that I read in January is a book called Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. It's a super popular book. I've seen it on Instagram quite a bit, and that's kind of what prompted me to pick it up. I was looking for something kind of light, something romantic, you know, something to get the googly feelings. So the story is about this couple who was madly in love, but they ended up divorcing after a tragedy. So they divorced. They had 2 kids already. They divorced, and now they are co-parenting, and so it kind of chronicles them co-parenting but also being business partners. So they also owned this restaurant. So it basically talks about a lot of the trauma in both of the husband's life and then also the wife's life and kind of their collective trauma. It chronicles the kids. It talks about their friendships. It talks about them dating. So there's a lot of different plots into the whole book. But ultimately, there's a very, I would say it is a non-subtle theme of therapy. There's some pop culture references there. These are Black people in Atlanta, so it has that Atlanta vibe to it a little bit. I gave this book 3 stars. I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed learning about the kids and the relationship. I just felt like it was too forced, you know. I felt like the therapy piece was very forced. I felt that their relationship was, I don't know, I don't want to say it was fake. I don't think it was fake at all, but it was too much for me. It wasn't subtle enough. It didn't have enough, it wasn't lyrical enough for me, I think. Maybe that's the word. So the next book I finished in January was Cant Hurt Me by David Goggins. Y'all, I absolutely loved this book. It inspired me so much. I will honestly say it inspired me to pick my camera back up, and it inspired me to like get more structure and intention in my life, and to really understand that, look, the only thing between me and being who I want to be, where I want to be, is me. That I can make it happen. I can make it happen. And so essentially David Goggins, he started out his life in a very toxic, from a very toxic family environment. His dad was very abusive to his mother. His mother ended up leaving his father and moved across the country to Indiana. So they were actually, I think, in New Jersey or New York, somewhere on the East Coast, and they moved to this very small town in Indiana. It was just him and his mother. I think his brother had moved initially, but then his brother went and lived back with his dad. So growing up in this super small town, he faced a lot of racism. He talked about how school was not his thing, and he had one teacher that really kind of worked with him and helped him, but then when he got to like high school, he didn't have that, and so instead of actually being good, he just cheated, and then it came back to haunt him. And you know, he has such a his life is crazy. Like his life is just so expansive. It's so expansive. So with that being said, he ended up not doing very well in school, but really got enamored with becoming, I think it was like a person that jumps out of the planes. And so you had to like pass these tests and stuff to do that. So that kind of is what helped him get out of high school, was that he had this goal that he wanted to get to, and he had to do what he needed to do to get there. And then it talks about how he, you know, got very, very overweight. And he got very, very much so overweight, but he still had this kind of dream of, you know, challenging himself physically. And he ended up going to this Marine boot camp. This, like, I don't even know what they call it. Crazy man boot camp. Crazy man boot camp. And he had to do it like 3 different times before he actually passed it. He had to do it over and over again until he passed it. Y'all, absolutely insane what he had to do in that environment, but he did it. He did it, and he learned from it, and he grew from it. And really, literally, the title Can't Hurt Me, he calloused his mind. So he basically trained himself to not listen to that instinct, to stop, you know, that physical instinct to stop. And he pushed himself to these limits that, you know, beyond his limits, beyond what he thought he could do. And what I think is really cool about the book, and y'all, that the summary, I can't even tell you all the different things that this man has done. He did the Marine thing. He was in the Army. He did like the hard Army camp. He did these 100-mile marathons. Y'all, this dude is absolutely incredible, absolutely insane. And I just loved his energy. I loved how he talked through the book. Like I was about to say before I interrupted myself, is that at the end of each chapter, he has these challenges. And the challenge is like, you know, for instance, this one is visualization. And so he goes through these different things. So he's basically giving you a guide to how you can kind of change things in your life. So I thought this was very, very different from a lot of self-help books, just because of the intensity. He has a like unreal intensity. If you go look up this man on Instagram, y'all. He is not for everybody. He is fucking intense. That's what he's fucking intense, okay? But at the same time, he has accomplished things that the body will tell you. The body will say, you can't do this. He did it. So when I'm on my Peloton and I can feel that lactic acid, he talked about you can feel that lactic acid. First world problems on my Peloton. But anyways, I can feel that lactic acid in my body. And I'm like, I think of this book. I really do. I think of this book. I'm like, what would David Goggins do? He would push through. So like I said, it's not necessarily for everybody. This is something that I will continue to go back to. I just think his message is remarkable. I feel like it was inclusive. I felt like it was self-aware. He pointed out the areas, and I think that some of the best parts of the book were when he pointed out areas, once he got to this certain point, where he still could improve and where he still could get better. You know, he talked about how he just was really hurt one time, like physically hurt. He couldn't do some of the things he needed to do. And he went everywhere, to every doctor, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with you, but he was freaking dying. Like, he felt like he was dying. And he realized, I need to stretch. You know, like it's that whole, like, sometimes you go, like, you are in your grind mode and you figured out how to get through, but then there's always that next thing, that thing that takes you to the next level. And he searches for that. He meets challenges. I absolutely look forward. I look up to him when I face certain things. Reading this book helped give me that kick in the ass that I need to get up in the morning and get on my Peloton, even though I didn't do it today. But we gonna check. We gonna fix it. But you know, I can't recommend it enough. David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. All right, so the next 2 reads that I did were buddy reads with a couple different friend groups that I had. One was a friend group, another one was just a friend. So the first one, both of these are rereads for me. So I will give you kind of my insight on what I thought before, and then also. All right, y'all, I'm back. My bad. The memory card got full. I think we just finished talking about David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. And we were getting ready to get into the 2 rereads that I did, along with their buddy rereads. So let's just get back into that. All right, so the first buddy reread I did was The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I originally read this book maybe a year to 2 years ago. I don't remember, a year or 2 years ago. And I actually read it with a different set of friends. And then this time I read it with another lady. So anyways, The Vanishing Half is about these 2 twins that grow up in Louisiana, a very small town that was actually, it was created for very fair complected people who weren't white, but also could pass for white. They weren't black. Y'all, I know that's probably not the right term, but they were all very light skinned. Like the whole lineage of the town, very, very light skin, a light, bright complected skin. And so these 2 twins, you have Stella and you have Desiree. They both have 2 very different personalities. Y'all, I'm looking at the viewfinder and not at the camera, sorry. But they have 2 very different personalities, and they both end up running away to New Orleans, and then eventually they split up. Stella goes off and marries a white man and passes as a white woman, and then Desiree goes off and marries a very dark-skinned black man, and eventually comes back to their hometown bearing a very dark-skinned black girl. And so it goes and chronicles the lives of not just Stella and Desiree, but also this little girl who Desiree had, this dark-skinned girl in this very light town. And then I think her name is Jude. Jude, and then you also chronicle Stella's daughter, who doesn't know that she got some black in her, who lives out in California. At some point, these 2 girls, they meet up, and it basically goes on from there. I hope I didn't tell too much of the story, but the first time I read this, the first half of the book, I absolutely loved. It left at a cliffhanger, like right at that halfway point, and then the second half of the book, I just thought it just was kind of boring. I didn't like Stella, and I said this over on Instagram as well. I didn't like Stella. I could have some compassion for Stella. She is the one that passed for white, but I think overall for me as a black woman, I just felt that Stella was dry. I felt like she was very surface, which makes sense why she was surface, because she relied on her surface, her phenotypical appearance to get her a certain life. And in order for her to do that, she had to cut off so much of herself, and she just didn't really have much left, you know. And I think that the writer kind of portrayed that very well. So in my second time reading it, I think that I was able to really, really appreciate the writing of Britt Bennett. I think the first time I was just so like, I don't like Stella, I don't like the second half of the book, that I kind of missed how beautifully written this story is. So there's a lot of different themes in the story. There is a theme of transgender theme, there's a transgendered relationship. I would say that the theme is more identity. There's themes of home. What is home? What does it look like? Who am I? You know, from a physical standpoint, how does that change, you know, how I express myself, or how I perceive myself, or how I live my life in general. There's obviously a theme of lightness and darkness. There's a lot that is tackled in this story. I both times would have loved to learn a little bit more about Jude and in her love interest in the story. I thought that that was a story that I haven't heard before, you know. I have read Passing, which is the only other book that I've read around this subject, and I don't really want to compare them. They're very different. They're the same in a lot of ways, but they're also written at different periods of time. And I think the premise is a little different, even though I think some of the I felt some of the similarities, and some similarities in characters. And I think that they're, you know, when you pass. And granted, this is just my perception because I can't pass. I ain't passing nowhere. But if you pass in these time periods, I feel like while you gain certain freedoms, you also lose so much identity that you become trapped in this appearance. You could become trapped in this thing that you created that's not reality, that's not truth. And it kind of gets lonely there. And so I think that that was also a theme here of loneliness. There's, you know, different relationships that are in here. It's definitely a very good book to read in terms of a buddy read. It's a very, very good discussion book. I think I ended up giving this 4 stars. I think that was pretty similar to what I gave it before. I think I might have gave it 3 stars before because I was just disappointed. But the writing is impeccable. I am so happy I read it again because I got to appreciate that a lot more. And like I said, I think it's a great book to read with someone else. So if you haven't picked this up, I definitely highly recommend it. All right, so the next reread that I did was, y'all, the first time I read this book, I read it via audio, and this time I actually read it, and I still had the audiobook, so I read it and like visualized it, and I heard it. So it was just this total immersive experience, and I just had it was so good. It was so good. And that is An American Marriage by Terry Jones. I thought this book was superb. I loved the characters. So I went with 2 of my girlfriends out here. We went to brunch and talked about this book. We had such a great conversation. There were so many aspects of the book to talk about. Essentially, this book is about a young couple who gets married, and by these chance circumstances, the male is wrongly imprisoned for raping another lady. And it goes through and chronicles kind of the life and how they engaged after he was incarcerated. He was incarcerated for 5 years. The style of the book is beautiful. There's these letters that go back and forth when they're in jail, but then there's also these perspectives. So each chapter, minus the part with the letters, each chapter goes in from the perspective of the point of view of a different character. Celestial is the lady, and then what is the guy's name? Roy is the guy's name. So it goes between Celestial, Roy, and then a few other characters. This is just a combination of just mess, and at the same time there's that whole theme of, you know, the wrongly incarcerated black man, and then, you know, to me, love, like, what is love? What constitutes love? Marriage, what is marriage? What constitutes marriage? You know, is love required for marriage? You know, there was so many topics to discuss in this book. I highly recommend that you read this with other people, and you guys go and talk about the book in a cool place, brunch or at your house. Get you some wine and some cheese, and y'all have a good discussion. I would say that what I took away from the book, and even when you look at An American Marriage, it makes you think about, like, what did the author mean? What did the author mean? And for me, America is so freaking complicated. It is so complicated. It is, there's so much that we, like, from a societal standpoint, there's, you know, what does it mean to be a wife? What does it mean to be a husband? What does it mean to love somebody else? Like, what does that look like? What does it mean? And I think that a lot of things we do, not just here in America, but probably more so in Western culture, is that we perform our lives. We perform marriage. We perform being a wife. We perform being a husband. And in that, sometimes we get who we are, who we really are, when we're not performing, gets lost. And when things happen, like, you know, your husband getting wrongfully accused of a crime, when that type of thing happens, guess what? Now you have to actually see, now you're exposed. Now you are exposed, right? Your relationship is exposed. Do you stay? Do you go? All right. So American Marriage, Terry Jones, absolutely love this. 5 stars. Would read it again if I could. So yeah, there's that. So the last book that I read in January was thick. Whenever I see this, I'll be like, I want to say thick, 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 thick. Y'all, there's a song called that be like thick, 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 thick. But this book is a collection of essays by Tressie McMillan Cotton. These are like more of Black feminism. So there's a lot in here. It's such an easy read. You can see the writing. I finished this in one day, in one sitting. I didn't even anticipate picking it up. I thought it was good. I have not read a lot of books on feminism, but for me, after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, which y'all will hear about my thoughts on that, I definitely want to dig more into Black feminism, humanism, all those things. I want to dig more into that. And this is something that I've had on my bookshelf for a while and wanted to kind of take a look at. So it's basically just different essays, a conglomeration of essays by her, you know, her perspective and how she sees the world from the eyes of a Black woman. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I will say it's one of those that I have to go back. Like, I did do some highlighting and some annotation, but for me to really do it justice in terms of rating it and something like that, I would definitely need to go back and take a look. But from the enjoyment of it, like, I wouldn't say enjoyment, but from reading it, like being able to read it in one day, kind of can tell you that it was easy to just get into it and be able to find things that challenged me, but that also, I love it. All these authors did this, but I love it when authors kind of can give you words for your experiences, or words for these things that don't have words, that you're like, that happens in your life, feelings, experiences, things like that. So she did that quite a bit for me in this book. And yeah, I can't wait to go back through this, kind of do some annotation. I have a feeling that this is one that I'll pick back up, and if not read the whole thing, but read maybe some portions of it. So there's that. Okay, I'm stopping. All right, y'all. So that is everything that I read in January. I did want to come in real quick and tell you guys where I'm at with my reading for February. I will do a February wrap up to kind of go through these things, but I've currently finished 2 books this month, and it is the 16th. So I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of a little bit behind where I want to be, but I think that I will be able to finish one of these books this weekend. So I'll be kind of at that 5. I like to do 4 to 5 books a month, so I'll be right in that area. So I finished, what did I finish earlier this month? I finished Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. I'll put it up here. Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. I finished this. This is a book that I put off. Like, I've seen it, but I put it off for a long time, because why we gotta be exhausted? Why do we gotta be exhausted? Like, I don't want to be exhausted. But I get it. Once I read it, I got it. I think I ended up giving it like 3 stars. I'll talk to you more about it once we do a wrap up. And then it took me forever, but I finished the autobiography of Malcolm X. I have a whole video coming out. Like I said in the intro, I think, if I don't cut it out. But y'all, this video was supposed to be me looking at this. But as you can see, like as I was doing the script, because I actually did a script for this video, I realized, nah, there's more that needs to be said about this. So, I ended up, I'll do that video later, probably this month, if not next month. So this y'all, this took me out. Like I finished this 2 days ago now, and I was going through it today, doing like going through my annotations to kind of put into my notes for the script for the next video. And y'all, my heart, I had to pray and breathe before I went on my afternoon meetings for work, because there's a lot here. As a Black woman of 2023 reading this, there is a lot to critique. There's a lot to feel, and I'm trying to process it. And yeah, look for me with this new video. I am super excited to share it with you guys when it comes. All right. And then what I wanted, because that happened over there with that book, I wanted to pick up something that was going to kind of fill me back up again and get me back to where I feel like, okay, this thing we can do. The battle is not as far up the hill as I thought it was, because y'all, this got a long way to go. But I had to pick up the new EGOT, okay? Her book. If you don't know, you need to learn. You need to figure it out. Miss Viola. My dad said it was Viola. I would say Viola Davis. My dad said it's not Viola. So Viola Davis, I think. This is her book. She won an Emmy. Oh, y'all. She won an Emmy for the audiobook. So I have the audiobook, and then obviously I have the hardback book. So I will start reading this tonight, and I can't wait to just be immersed in her story and her words. Finding me out, y'all. I am in transition in my life. So I'm hoping that this book can give me just that as well, because I need that. So yes, that's where I'm at now. And with that being said, y'all, I think we got ourselves a video. Finally, I am committing to being more consistent and to providing more quality content. I feel it. And I am going to do whatever it takes to hold myself accountable to it. I have so much that I want to be able to bring to this channel, and I think that it'd be a great space for me to like release some creative energy, and give me more of an ability to focus on my work, on my job, the day job, the job that pays the bills, not seeking the creative experience, because I kind of fall short with that in corporate America, but actually having this as a space to kind of get that creativity and get those juices flowing. I think that it will help me in both areas of my life, not only with work, but also with, you know, just my own relaxation and staying true to my own self and to my own craft. If that makes any sense. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out. Bye, guys.